I'm sitting at home at work, about to take my 30-minute lunch break, and I hop on Facebook. I start scrolling like I always do, and I happen upon one of my mom Facebook groups. I'm in, I think, 3 for the area, but somebody in the mom Facebook group had made a post about how she had just finished her second surrogacy journey and had been hired on as a case manager for Giving Tree Surrogacy. And in her post, she talked about the different criteria that are needed in order to be a surrogate. She talked about her experience as a surrogate, the 2 separate journeys she had with 2 different families, and then she also talked about what it's like being a case manager for surrogates. So after reading her post, she explained how fulfilling it had been to be a surrogate, as well as how much it had also helped her family with the compensation. She talked about how excited she was to buy a new house with the money that she had made, but also was happy to have helped another family become larger, maybe add an additional child or have their first child. Either way, help a family grow. She was super excited about that. And so I left a comment and said, hey, I meet all this criteria, which was like your BMI, your age limit, your medical history, stuff like that. And I looked at the list of criteria and I was like, I check all of these boxes. The biggest one being I had to have had a child of my own already and had a healthy pregnancy. And I did. I have a little boy. He's 7 years old now. And at the time he was 5. And my pregnancy could not have been easier. My pregnancy was super easy from start to finish, and then my birth went really well as well. So overall, it was a really amazing experience for me being pregnant, carrying the baby, and then breastfeeding the baby. My family has always known that we were one and done. My son, as soon as I had him, I was like, this is it, I'm good. My parents had 5 kids. I'm number 4 of 5. Both of my grandmas had 5 kids. My mother had a daycare my entire life growing up, so I've been surrounded by children, and I know what it's like to live in a big family, and I just didn't see myself having that kind of life. As soon as I had my son, I was very much, this is it, I'm good to go. I don't need any more children. I'm very happy one and done. He has the most amazing personality. He's a wonderful child, and I'm so lucky to have him. And I just couldn't imagine our family being any bigger. We've got my husband, my son, and we have 3 cats. Again, we had 3, lost 1, got another one almost immediately, so very full house always, don't need another child. And with that information, I knew that I had had such a healthy pregnancy and that my mother had had 5 healthy pregnancies, both my grandmothers had had 5 healthy pregnancies, and with this idea that I could do pregnancy again, but I don't have to keep the baby, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would be wanting to do anyway. So when I reached out to her and I told her I met all the criteria, she set me up with Kelly from Giving Tree, and she contacted me within the week asking me to fill out some forms, try to get some medical record information, and so we got the ball. My family has always known that we were one and done. My son, as soon as I had him, I was like, this is it, I'm good. My parents had 5 kids. I'm number 4 of 5. Both of my grandmas had 5 kids. My mother had a daycare my entire life growing up, so I've been surrounded by children, and I know what it's like to live in a big family, and I just didn't see myself having that kind of life. As soon as I had my son, I was very much, this is it, I'm good to go. I don't need any more children. I'm very happy one and done. He has the most amazing personality. He's a wonderful child, and I'm so lucky to have him. And I just couldn't imagine our family being any bigger. We've got my husband, my son, and we have 3 cats. Again, we had 3, lost 1, got another one almost immediately, so very full house always, don't need another child. And with that information, I knew that I had had such a healthy pregnancy and that my mother had had 5 healthy pregnancies, both my grandmothers had had 5 healthy pregnancies, and with this idea that I could do pregnancy again, but I don't have to keep the baby, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would be wanting to do anyway. So when I reached out to her and I told her I met all the criteria, she set me up with Kelly from Giving Tree, and she contacted me within the week asking me to fill out some forms, try to get some medical record information, and so we got the ball rolling basically right away. So my first time thinking about surrogacy was in the early beginning of February of 2022. And it was probably 2020 from February until about June, I think, is when we were crafting my profile, making sure I passed all the medical stuff. They had to check all my medical records, make sure that I had a son, make sure I had a healthy pregnancy like I said I did. They checked all of that background information. I had to go through my hospital to make sure they got all my medical records. And once we were in the clear there, we crafted this profile for us, which was a compilation of photos of me and my family, as well as information about my job, job, information about my lifestyle, how we play disc golf, we go mini golfing, I have an exercise bike that I ride. So we covered kind of my lifestyle choices when it comes to exercise, as well as my choices when it comes to eating. So we just kind of talked about how I take care of my body. That way they knew I was going to be a good surrogate. You get to know each other for 1 hour-ish. I think mine normally lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. So I knew about a week ahead of time when our meeting was going to be, and I wrote down some questions, just kind of what was their birth plan, what kind of surrogate are they looking for, do they want to be in the room, what kind of relationship do they want to have during the surrogacy and after the surrogacy. I want to know what we're looking at kind of situation. What kind of surrogate are you hoping to get? For me, my first surrogacy journey, I had one couple reach out to me and I reviewed their profile. This was probably early June, and immediately it clicked. I was like, these guys sound wonderful. I would love to help them grow their family. So we reached out, we had our meeting, it was about an hour long, and we clicked on everything. Every lifestyle question they had for me, because they wanted to make sure that they had a healthy surrogate who was going to grow a good baby, good, healthy, strong baby. And so they had a lot of questions about my lifestyle, how I exercise, how I eat, what my family does for fun, stuff like that. And then I had related questions to do you want to be in the delivery room? Do you want breast milk pumped? What kind of restrictions do you have in mind for a surrogate? Stuff like that. And every single question was perfect. They had the right answer. I had the right answer. And we had 24 hours after the meeting to decide if we wanted to go ahead and match. And both of us within 1 hour of the meeting, reached out and said, yes, I want you to be my surrogate. Yes, I want to be your surrogate. So that was super exciting. So we had scheduled the meeting and got everything set up. So after matchmaking, then comes the medical clearance and psych evaluation. So for me, we did the psych evaluation first because it's just over the phone, super easy. We had, I think it was 538 questions on a personality quiz that I filled out for a psychiatrist. And we answered all 538 questions, true or false, normal things like, do you love your mother? Do you think that you're a good person? Do you think that laws exist for a good reason? And just yes, true, yes, true, yes, true. Me and my husband sat down and made a whole night of it and answered all the questions together. And then after we did the personality quiz, then we meet with a psychiatrist and we talked to her for about 1 hour, just giving her background information on my family. Do I still have contact with my parents? Are we on good terms? Did they have a healthy pregnancy? Do I have any siblings? Do they have healthy pregnancies? And then the same thing for my husband. After they narrowed down our background information like that, then she kind of talked about what our lifestyle choices are as well, just kind of evaluating on family to see if we are a good fit to be a surrogate family. And we passed with flying colors, so medical evaluation was out of the way. Psych evaluation was out of the way. Next was medical evaluation. That one was a little bit scarier because I live in southern Missouri and my fertility clinic is out in Pasadena, California. So I had to go out for medical clearance by myself, which I've never traveled to another state on my own. I married my husband at 21 and he's been with me ever since. So it was really scary the first time traveling out by myself. But my case manager was on top of everything. She booked my flights, she booked my hotel. She made sure that I landed safely, that I got to my hotel safely. My drive from LAX to Pasadena was 45 minutes at 1 a.m. and it could not have gone better. Honestly, I had a female driver, which I was very excited about, and she was wonderful the whole way. I felt safe in my hotel room. I felt safe at the fertility clinic. So I flew out to California, did the 45-minute drive out to the hotel, and then the next morning I woke up and went to my medical clearance. I had no idea what to expect, but it was kind of like an annual visit with your OBGYN and just a normal pap smear. So they did the pap smear, they weigh you, they take your blood to test you for a bunch of things. They also, with the pap smear, they swab you for any kind of diseases. They also put a little bit of water inside your uterus to just kind of see if there's any scar tissue or if there's any cysts or polyps or anything like that, when they do the actual embryo transfer, they have water with the embryo as well. So I think this also kind of gives them an idea on like placement to see if like your uterus looks good. So that was another part of it. And then they just asked me the normal questions like, do you feel safe at home? How do you eat? A lot of the early stuff in surrogacy is how do you eat and do you exercise? So that got repeated a lot in the beginning. All of this happened in the month of July. So matchmaking in June, the medical clearance in July, and then after I passed medical clearance, which I did, spoiler, and then in August, we went ahead and we signed the contract. That also took quite a bit more time than I expected. So how it started was the intended parents, their lawyer, made a contract and sent it to my lawyer, which is hired and paid for by the intended parents. Nothing cost me a dime. The hotel, flights, the Ubers, even that I took to and from the airport, those were reimbursed within 24 hours. Any food that I had, I got to keep receipts and send them photos of. So all of that is taken care of, as well as the lawyers for the contract signing. So their lawyer made a contract and sent it to my lawyer, and then we went over it together. I think it was 39 pages. We went over it together. I asked any questions about any kind of verbiage I didn't understand, and then we made corrections. So if there was something in it I didn't like or something I felt needed to be added, honestly, my lawyer did more of that than I did. They were very well trained in surrogacy contracts, so even stuff that I hadn't even thought of, they're like, hey, we should slap that in there. And I was like, okay. So my lawyer took care of everything for me. I think we passed the contract back and forth about 4 times, but it took like a week every time we passed it back and forth. So it took a little over a month to actually finalize the contract. And that was surprising for me because when I applied in February, I immediately panicked and I was like, I'm gonna be pregnant next month. We gotta figure out who's gonna start cleaning the litter boxes. We're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna get to and from appointments, etc., etc. And it does not happen quite that fast. So I had to learn to be a little bit more patient. So we signed the contract, and within 2 weeks of signing the contract, I had medication coming to my doorstep. That was my shots that I had to do. I did both progesterone and estradiol shot, as well as prenatal vitamins through my fertility clinic, as well as some other pills that they had me take at the time of embryo transfer, and a whole packet of instructions. They also sent me videos to help me do my shot. And unfortunately for me, my husband is afraid of needles, so I did all of my shots on my own. In total, it was 78 shots over the course of 60 days, which was around 8 weeks of shots. So that was definitely a learning curve. I went into IVF not knowing a lot, so the shots kind of took me by surprise, but was so much easier than anticipated. It seems a lot scarier than it actually is, because there's not any actual pain involved when it comes to doing the injection. That first prick, sure, but after that, it's nothing. And I think after the first 3 shots, I was nervous. And then after that, it was just routine. You get up in the morning, you get your progesterone ready, you give yourself a shot, you move on about your day, and you completely forget that you even did it. And it just became habitual. So the shots honestly were a lot easier than I expected, which I'm still grateful for, and why I'm willing to do a second journey. Embryo transfer happened in October. October 20th was my embryo transfer. Me and my husband both got to fly out to California for that trip, which was really nice. So I didn't have to be alone that time. We got to stay an extra night so that I could rest after the embryo transfer. But the actual transfer itself is really simple. You go in with a full bladder so they can see your uterus, and prop your legs up, put the baby in you, and you wait 2 minutes. I was comfortable waiting at least 5, even though I really had to go to the bathroom with my full bladder. I waited 5 minutes. And then I was able to get up, use the restroom, and then I was told not to lift anything over 5 pounds, which was why my husband was there to help carry everything for me. And then they told me to rest, but make sure to get up every 2 hours to keep my blood flowing. It was super simple, was not painful at all, was not uncomfortable, and baby stuck first try. So very easy transfer for me. My actual embryo transfer was on October 20th. And so 4 months of actual stuff after we got my profile up and running. So thankfully for me, my first embryo transfer did stick, and we got a positive test result within 10 days. So that was a blood test. I went to my monitoring clinic in my city, and we did a blood draw and had a positive HCG score within 10 days, which was, the 10 days sounds really quick. It felt like years waiting for it, but we were so over the moon excited when we did get that positive test result back, and we knew the baby was growing happy and healthy. After that, we continued to have almost weekly appointments to monitor baby until we got a positive heartbeat, which is when my base compensation started paying. After we got the positive heartbeat, I believe baby was around 8 weeks at that point. So from 8 weeks to 12 weeks is when I continued to do my shots. But then at 12 weeks, I was able to stop them, and I was all done. So that was a super exciting part of my journey for me, was stopping my injections and just being pregnant, just actually existing as a pregnant woman versus someone going through IVF. My first trimester with my surrogate baby was harder than my first trimester with my baby. Like I said, with my son, I did not have morning sickness at all. It was the opposite case with my surrogate baby. I had really bad morning sickness to the point that I ended up reaching out for help from my IVF clinic. So I reached out to my IVF clinic and I explained that I was having constant nausea as well as I was vomiting at least once a day. The first time I actually reached out, I had thrown up twice that day, and I was trying to go as zero medication as possible because I wanted to show my intended parents that I was a strong and capable pregnant woman. I did not need to do that. If I have trouble within my new journey, I'm definitely reaching out sooner. They gave me some simple combination of like B12 and some sleeping medicine, and it knocked my nausea right out. And within 5 weeks, by the time I hit 16 weeks pregnant, my nausea completely subsided, so I was able to stop that medication. My IVF clinic was really helpful when it came to any concerns that I had, especially early pregnancy. I was able to switch and move over to my OB. So I got to pick the OB. I also got to pick the hospital where I gave birth at, and they would just come meet me. So I had 2 trips out to California. One was for my medical clearance, and then one was for my embryo transfer. I can move over to my OB, and we treated it as a normal pregnancy. I had like once a month visits up until 3rd trimester when we started having our every other week, and then eventually weekly visits. We had scheduled an induction with the intended parents because we knew we wanted them in the room. My intended parents were actually from China, and they weren't able to make it in time, which was disappointing and a little scary because I didn't know what would happen. But they had a designated power of attorney and nanny show up within 12 hours of baby being born. So I was not forced to mother this child. I was not forced to take care of it. They even took baby into the nursery for me at the hospital after birth. So everything was still taken care of despite the parents not being there. We had scheduled an induction planning to induce so the parents could be there, and I ended up going into labor the day before my scheduled induction. I was scheduled induction with my son because he waited 40 weeks and 6 days to be born, and he was almost 10 pounds. Well, on the scan, thankfully only 8 pounds, 8 ounces real life, but we were nervous that he was going to keep getting bigger. So I had my scheduled induction with my son. I was mentally prepared. I knew what came with that, but I did end up going into labor at 38 weeks and 6 days. I had a very healthy labor time. It was about 12 hours, just like my son, but 2 pushes and surrogate baby was here. We took a couple photos with baby, and then they asked me if I wanted baby in my room while I rest and recover, or if they want me to take him to the nursery. And I told them the nursery. I didn't want to bond too terribly much, but I didn't feel that maternal connection with the baby. So that was kind of almost relieving, because that's something surrogates are sometimes worried about, is emotionally connecting with baby.
Giving Tree Surrogate.